We've called on the government to do is have a more progressive approach to the CERB and have a gradual type of reduction of the benefits so that it's always better off for Canadians to work. A gradual phase out of the benefit as people earn more and more, we believe would encourage and incentivize people to re-enter the workforce.
I really look forward to facing that challenge of how we start to scale back the benefits and help people get back to work. We're not there yet. We're very much still trying to make sure that people are getting the support they need.
Hi there, I'm Vashi Capellos. This is Power in Politics on CBC News Network. We are streaming live around the world on the CBC News app as well as CBCNews.ca. I'd like to give a warm welcome to viewers joining us on their local CBC stations in the Maritime provinces. It is great, as always, to have you with us. The Conservatives are thinking about weaning Canadians off of emergency programs and benefits. The Liberal government has implemented a suite of measures to soften the financial hit many are taking due to COVID-19 lockdowns. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says, yes, as you heard there, the time to scale back will come, just not now. So when will the right time be? And is now the time to be planning to do so? Time for the Power Panel. In Toronto, Melissa Lantsman, National Vice President of Enterprise Canada, joins us. Coming to us also in Toronto via Skype, Council of Public Affairs, Brad Levine, and Yolande James, former Quebec Liberal Cabinet Minister, joins us from Montreal. Hi, guys. Great to see you.
Hi. Nice to hear you.
It's glad to have
talk to everyone.
Yeah, great to have the gang back. Yolande, why don't I start with you around this the sort of evolution of the conversation. And to be fair, it started last week with Manitoba Premier Brian Pallister, who said he's also hearing concerns from employers who are worried that there is a disincentive to work right now.
I don't in any way think that, especially in these unprecedented times, that we can minimize any concerns that the premiers have. But I certainly agree with the Prime Minister's assessment of, I don't think that that's where we are now. If we look to, for example, Vashi, the fact that most premiers have announced, if not all, their plans to gradually reopen the economy. But we're at the very beginning of this. Just here in Quebec, today, François Legault had to already pull back on his announcement on opening businesses in Montreal. So to say that we're already at a point in time where people are not going back to work, even though they have the opportunity to, even the whole process of opening back gradually the economy is far from being sure. And let's not forget that from the very beginning, and I think regardless of political stripes, most people recognize the importance of having the $2,000 allocation, as was mentioned, to be able to respond to people's immediate needs, given that we're living in unprecedented times here, and people need to be able to know that when they do have the opportunity to go back to work, they're going to be able to do so. And I'm sure they will be eager to do so, but be able to do so safely as well.
What strikes me, Melissa, is that really the situation when it comes to going back to work completely depends on where you live. If I lived in New Brunswick today versus Ontario, the calculation would be very different. And I'd imagine that presents a challenge for figuring out how to best evolve the federal program. What do you think that the federal government should do?
Well, look, in terms of local decision making, I think the people that are closest to, to those economies are best to decide when they go back. That being said, I think there's a lot of programs, including the changes that were made in EI by the last Conservative government, that could serve as a good model here to give people the assurances that they need, at least employers, the assurances that they need that when it is time to go back, and this is not about, having them go back tomorrow. It's about having the plan, giving businesses the assurances that they need, that when the economy does restart, that they're going to have workers to fill those rooms. And so this gradual phase out of the benefit, it isn't, it's not a radical change to the benefit. And I think there's another thing that we are not talking about, and that's how much, and I'm sure the folks at finance are thinking about this, is how much does this spur an underground economy and the potential for that? And that's not to pass judgment on Canadians and their intentions, but when you disincentivize work, or at least paying taxes on the work, there is an adverse effect to getting this thing going.
Brad, the other side of the conversation involves, for example, the wage subsidy. And I just had Minister Duclos on the show asking him about, for example, will that program be extended? It's only for up to 3 months. It backdated to March 15th. He didn't have a clear answer on whether it would be. But there is sort of, I think, that side of the conversation about what happens with these aid programs as well as we hit this sort of middle ground. We're not in the shutdown phase of things. We're in the beginning of the open up phase of things, but we're certainly not anywhere close to normal either.
No, we're certainly not anywhere near close to being normal, which is why I find it, concerning that Conservatives are already starting to talk about cutting back the very programs that are keeping people from, paying their rent, buying groceries, and we're going to need those people with those resources to frequent the local places in the economy. I disagree with Melissa. I don't believe that the people who are closest on the ground should be the ones who are going to be opening the economy. I think it's the public health professionals that should be letting us know when we should be opening up those economies. Now, each province is approaching the opening up of the economy differently. But, Mr. Scheer needs a new dictionary. The idea that it's progressive to start cutting back is the exact opposite of the term progressive. We have a universal program in place to get money into the economy. That money is vital. That money is just really in place over the last handful of weeks. And as we come out of the COVID world, as more and more facets of the economy open up, we're going to need those people to have money in their pockets so they can start spending and start rebuilding those local economies. But we are far, far from there. We should be looking at, how the federal government, can ensure that there's enough money in people's pockets to get through the next handful of weeks. Because, as you rightfully point out, Vashi, New Brunswick and Manitoba, might be in one place with this COVID, but, other communities like in Ontario and Toronto, they will be the last places, I'm sure, that will have restrictions lifted. And therefore, there are millions of Canadians that live here and will be relying on the CERB and other of these support programs. And it's going to be tough for those folks who are dying to get out there, but those programs are vital for Canadians. And until everything's opened up again, we should be talking about weaning people off of these programs.
It's interesting, Yolande, because it's not just Andrew Scheer who's talking about this. Like I mentioned, I just had Blaine Higgs on, the Premier of New Brunswick, as well as last week, the Premier of Manitoba, Brian Pallister. Really high level of cooperation among premiers and the federal government. I don't want to take away from that. But there is a sense, at least, for someone who's interviewing them throughout this whole thing, that the honeymoon is perhaps just not ending, but dissipating a little bit.
Well, I think we're seeing it with oppositions, whether it's federally or in different provinces as well, that it's normal. And I think that it's actually healthy in our democracy that the premiers and opposition start to ask and challenge the government's decisions. We're moving it towards, as you mentioned, another phase of this. But that being said, I think it really does go back to at the very beginning when the government had to make the decision. Things were moving and happening fast. We were putting in closing businesses, putting Quebec, Canada on pause, and businesses were losing revenue fast. And I think that the federal government had to make the decision, and they made the right one. What do? Are we going to be able to get money into the hands of Canadians that need it fast and it's not going to be perfect? Or are we going to be stuck in the scenario where people are going to be like, well, the government needed me and I was not, and we were not there for them? And I think that they made the right choice. Now we're at another phase. How do we obviously make the right decisions in conjunction with the premiers, given the very different realities of different provinces, but even regionally within provinces? Right. Again, here in Quebec, we're seeing this. Montreal and the rest of Quebec is very different, and that obviously causes a lot of concern and different reactions.
Yes. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.